Speaking of Pete Buttigieg, who came up in the last segment, he is doing an excellent job articulating some of the messaging things that Democrats are going to have to message if they're going to be successful in future elections in a way that I think resonates a little bit more with people. So in this clip, I'll show you two. In this clip, he does a good job of connecting, and people miss this, connecting the incompetence of Trump's cabinet and Trump's selections, which we rage a lot about, right? I'll talk about how terrible Hegseth is or any of these other people. And I love how he just picked Hegseth. Like I totally, Hegseth, etc. Marco Rubio, whatever. I could list for days every person that he's elected.
McDonald's cheeseburger.
Thank you. That timing was crazy. Me and Cole are like this. McDonald's cheeseburger guy, Bobby. But we will rage against them without explaining why them being bad is bad for people in their everyday lives. Here's Pete Buttigieg shocking Trump, destroying him, obliterating him. We'll figure out the title later for YouTube. I should probably unmute it. I mean, he looks great, but we should probably hear what he has to say.
In terms of what it would take for him and his supporters to break faith with each other, I think we have learned it's a very high bar because Trumpism has become a worldview unto itself. But I think there are moments where he has revealed how little respect he has for his own supporters. That's one of the reasons why I think the Epstein saga is especially relevant, because by telling them that this was important and that he would do something, and then by turning around and saying he won't do something and that they're stupid if they...
Is this the right clip? Yeah, it is. Okay, sorry. Let's keep listening.
...care about this. He's putting his thumb in their eye even more than usual. Basically, he's saying that he thinks they're gullible. But we do have to look at what we're doing that makes it hard to hear what we have to say. Too often we talk in terms that are academic. And when we're talking about deeply important things, like freedom and democracy, we still have to have a way of talking about it that relates to how everyday life is different. And how your everyday life is different and worse. It's that when you have an autocrat in power, he can get away with appointing incompetent people over very important things in our lives. So right now we have the Secretary of Defense in charge of defending the American people, who was accidentally texting military strike information to journalists. We have the person in charge of American public health, who is a quack who doesn't believe in medicine, and now measles is on the rise in America. We have a Secretary of Education in charge of your kids' educational well-being, who has spoken about the importance of A1, which means she does not understand that the acronym is AI, which means she does not understand the most important development affecting education in our lifetimes. We have a Secretary of Homeland Security who sat on funding and did not allow it to go to Texas during the floods for at least 2 days for no good reason. So these things do affect you, not for academic reasons, but because of what happens if you have a loss of accountability. Those are the kinds of things I think we need to talk about before anybody can hear us in these high-minded academic discussions about freedom and democracy.
Yes, absolutely the case. As we continue through this, please do click the subscribe button if you appreciate the show, and get the members only bonus show by clicking the join button, which is next to it. But the subscribe button is the free one, so you can do that first. And I think that's important. We get really immersed in our own world, and it's easy to think everyone knows why Trump undermining these democratic institutions is bad, or everyone knows why Bobby's past of anti-science activism is bad for their lives. Everyone gets why Hegseth, the allegations against him, his mismanagement, his history, his lack of qualifications is not good to have leading the Pentagon. But that's because we're talking about this all the time, every day. And so as we bring this out to voters who are a little bit more swayable, connecting those dots, it's not that they don't have the complete intelligence to connect those dots. It's that they're busy with other stuff and they're not keeping up with this to the extent that we are. And so just connecting them is super important, and taking it out of this kind of just cerebral, theoretical, as he said, academic thinking of it, where you're talking about the threat to democracy, the battle between democracy and autocracy over the next 100 years, and simplifying it down to what is really important to people in their lives, which is how it could impact them. Buttigieg then posted this on Republicans in Texas trying to, instead of changing their policies to win people over in the midterms, as it looks like they could lose their control in the House and or Senate, but instead just change the maps.
Hi, it's Pete. I wanted to say something about... Hi, it's Pete. I wanted to say something about the maps coming out of Texas, which you may have seen. A GOP plan to gerrymander and redistrict to give themselves an advantage in the next election. Obviously, this is unfair, it's undemocratic, it needs to be opposed. But it also tells us something very important that's actually encouraging. What it shows is that Republicans believe that they will lose Congress unless they change the maps before the next election, which means they are feeling the heat, they are feeling the pressure, even in Texas, over their incredibly unpopular policies like cutting Medicaid in order to give major tax breaks to the wealthiest people in this country. And it means our job is to continue to keep up the pressure on those issues and, of course, to demonstrate that we can do better. Hi, it's Pete.
Hi, it's Luke. How are you, Pete? Yeah. Who knows why I think of that? It's very weird. Yes. And we should call out the stuff he referenced and how absurd what they're doing is. I showed you the maps yesterday, but they're gaining 5 Republican seats in Texas, it appears, in this haphazard redrawing gerrymandering in the most funky of ways. And you know what? Let's talk about that, and then we'll circle back to a different issue I want to talk about. Here's CNN discussing just the comparison of gerrymanders.
Sure, but I mean, there's a sort of third party here that takes a look at this, the Princeton University Gerrymandering Project. And you can look at the map. I mean, you're complaining about California, but they're actually not quite as bad as many of these other states. And Illinois is, to your point, in dark red because it's pretty bad over there. But some of the other places, even New York, they tried to redistrict. They tried to redistrict and they didn't. That's why there are so many Republican seats in the state of New York right now.
Which in Texas, the Republican Party has been so brazen about the fact that their goal, they put out actually a tweet saying our goal is to maintain control of Congress. We are trying to get 5 more seats because we want to take control. We want to keep control of Congress. So yes, in New York and California, there are independent bipartisan commissions that are doing the redistricting, and that is not the case in terms of that.
It's insane to go, we want control of the House. What should we do? Let's think of a good campaign platform. No. Should we roll back these Medicaid cuts? No. Let's just draw the maps as squiggly as we can so that we group in a bunch of people that don't actually fit together, but would allow to jam in a bunch of votes to this district so that then we can plop out a bunch of more Republicans over here. And that's what they're doing. So then the question is, how do Democrats respond? Do they keep some of them gerrymander in their direction? Obviously, I get it. And I'm about to argue they should. But some of the states that Republicans have benefited from are blue states that got these independent commissions to make unbiased maps, and then that benefits Republicans as the red states are like slapping us across the face. We're like, you want a cookie? You want a cookie? It's just so wrong. So what we should do is play the same game, then get enough power, and then on a national basis impose independent map drawing.
What the Republicans are doing in Texas is not mid-cycle redistricting. It is not even gerrymandering. They already gerrymandered this map. The 2021 map that the Republicans drew in Texas is a gerrymander. I know because my law firm and I are suing them over that map. It violates the rights of Black and Hispanic voters. What they are doing now is taking an illegal map and they are actually making it 5 seats less fair to Democrats, 5 seats worse for minority voters. So it is time that Democrats Democrats not just match this, but actually make it clear that they will not only play what the Republican game they're playing, but actually exceed it. So I think every Democratic state that is controlled by Democrats needs to be looking right now at redrawing their maps beyond the 5 seats that Republicans are gaining in Texas. Because if they only try to match what Republicans are doing in Texas, Ron DeSantis will show up in Florida. The governor of Missouri is already looking at redistricting. Of course, Ohio Republicans have said they may redistrict. So
it's self-defense gerrymandering. That's what it is, okay? Because you're thinking, but I thought we were against making your congressional maps less representative, less fair, less honest to the populations and geography of these different states. Yes, you are. That does you nothing if they just keep control and keep rigging the system further. So on some things, I do think this sort of self-defense gerrymandering is fair. But then you have to, and this is what I worry the Democrats might not do, but then you have to impose voting rights. Impose sounds so nasty. Let me say implement. You have to implement voting rights legislation that will get rid of this problem forever once you have enough power to do so. That's a really important part of this equation.